And we are live.
Hi, everybody. I'm back again. Aren't you tired of seeing me every week? This is ridiculous, isn't it? All right. So, welcome to Community Office Hours. Today, I have someone else new. You've never seen this person, and I am kind of excited.
Only
Today,
a
we'll be
little.
talking just a little bit. Today, we'll be talking to Audrey from, all right, let me explain. So remember last time we were talking to the plugin team, I told you that they are actually part of a slightly bigger team, but they're kind of cut in half a bit. So there's the team is called enablement. You have plugin SDK, and then you have Audrey's team, which is over the language server. So language server protocol, all that good stuff. So today we will be talking to Audrey. I'll let you say hi before I go into my spiel.
Hi. I've been working on the VS Code extension for Terraform for about a year now. I work on the language client and the extension itself, and also a tiny bit on the language server project, but I have a teammate who owns the Go part of the code base, and I own the TypeScript.
So types, yeah, we're gonna have to talk about that too. All right. So if you're used to me, you already know what I'm gonna say. If you've never looked at our community code of conduct, I'm going to paste that in the chat. And it is here, but the TLDR is don't be rude. Let's have fun. Give me questions that I can ask so I can throw off a little bit. Be considerate, be respectful, and basically just treat everybody else in chat the way that you would want to be treated and ask me questions, please. Okay, then let's see. What else do we have? Yeah, funnily enough, the engineering that I never talk about is that Audrey and I used to be teammates. That's a fun fact.
Yes.
All right, so let's see. How in the world? Well, I won't even start with that. What in the world is a language server protocol? You can give it to me high level if you want to.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the language server protocol is basically a bunch of stuff that says if you have a piece of code or a Terraform configuration file, in our case, here's how you communicate about it. So the language server itself, it parses it, it comes to some understanding of what that stuff means. And then the protocol is how we actually have a conversation about what's there so that it can be represented in the extension.
Okay. So it's the thing that makes everything follow convention for I guess, lack of a better term.
Yeah, and interestingly, so all of this was developed by Microsoft. It comes out of their own. If you use VS Code, the JavaScript language server, all that stuff just built in, right? So that's their reference implementation. So if you actually go to the website for the language server protocol, you'll see stuff that looks like a lot of snippets of stuff out of their JavaScript, and that's why. So that's their reference implementation. They often try stuff there, and then it comes into the main protocol. It is still an open source project, so lots of people chime in with their different programming languages and their kinds of use cases. And over time, it has grown to have more kinds of capabilities. Again, about that idea that the language server is going to understand the code in some way and then need to talk to a client, an extension, in order to be able to represent it and to allow people to act on it in various ways.
Okay, so then let me do this while I'm thinking about it. So if you all have never actually seen this or have never, a lot of people just add their extensions from the VS Code from the actual IDE. So I'm going to add a link to the marketplace where the extension lives, and I'm going to add that in the chat. So if you all want to go check that out, you can. I have it. It's great. My next question, I don't even know if I'm actually allowed to ask, so I'm going to ask it. If you don't want to answer, you can. Was this from you all, if I'm not mistaken, absorbed an existing extension, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
There was a community project that predates us by a couple of years. And, a community maintainer who just didn't have time for it anymore. And if you've been using Terraform for a while, you know that between 0.11 and 0.12, there were some pretty big changes in how you work with Terraform. And so the previous extension, the person just didn't have time to really bring things up to date. And so it was not working very well for people who had upgraded to newer Terraforms. So there, we heard some kind of outside interest in whether HashiCorp could take it on. and adopt the project and work on it. And it took a little while to bring all the pieces together, but that's what we did. So the current extension is more or less a full rewrite, just because the VS Code APIs have developed a lot over time, and Microsoft has built out these really good SDKs for working with the language server protocol. And so there's a lot of stuff that the original person had to figure out how to implement from scratch. And they didn't originally even have a language server. They did some other things to cover that functionality. There were just a lot of pieces of it that we could modernize, we could simplify. So the current code base kind of moved forward from that point.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, I know who you're. Okay. So the other thing is, remember how I said Patty's team only has like 2 people specifically working on plugin SDK? Same goes for this particular team. So when we started this particular office hours, you said that you work on, I guess, like more of the UI and all the TypeScript based stuff. And then Roddick, who is the other person on the team, hi Roddick, is the person that works with the Go code base, correct?
Yeah.
Why split it like that?
It just a little bit had to do with our availability and where we were coming from. So there aren't that many people at HashiCorp who actually do JavaScript or TypeScript. Have in the past. I was at NPM previously, so I had some JavaScript cred there, funnily enough. So it came down just to a lot of practicalities like that. Reddick was previously on the SDK team, as you know. And so there's a lot about the language server that really relates to those like Terraform internals, right? Like how does language server know how to parse a Terraform config file? It comes to a lot of that background knowledge. So a lot of it just ended up being the practicality of, like Reddick's got this level, this kind of background, I've got this kind of background. I was also available to start working on it a little bit sooner. So I kind of went with the user facing inward. And then, as Radek was able to come into the project, he worked it from the other end of the problem. And we were able to meet in the middle.
That works with the time zones also, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Because he's in London and I'm in Portland.
Okay. What else? What other questions I had? I had a question. How hard? So even if you did have a bit of JS cred, because I've never yet played around with TypeScript, and I know we were talking about working together on some stuff soon. How hard was it for you to jump into building an extension? Like, have you ever built an extension before? Was this so you came from it from like...
Yeah, I have not built an extension before. They have some pretty good tutorials, so I, again, because I was able to come onto it a little bit sooner, I built a complete demo with its own server. And I worked from there. So I basically built an example of the whole thing that didn't have the real functionality, but it had all of those kinds of pieces to work through what VS Code could do, what the, what the components were going to be. And so that also, it took a little bit of time to just negotiate the details of the transfer, because we were taking on this community project and HashiCorp's a bigger company. And so there were just a lot of details to work out. So I was also able to work on a lot of what would eventually become our client by building that kind of demo. So it meant that I could, before users even saw it, figure out the VS Code APIs, figure out the, the extension process, the language server, SDK, all of that kind of stuff, work through those pieces in isolation, and then bring it into connection with the actual Terraform language server that we were writing.
Okay. And then because I am trying my darndest, I swear, to move more into like a consistent dev experience and the stuff that I'm doing, what would be the best way to attack starting an extension? Like, would I start with something big like you did, or should I start with like a theme, or something that just mostly deals with syntax, or like, what's the best way to approach that?
I would write a bunch of snippets personally. If I was going to write just an extension that had like kind of some minimal functionality to learn how things work, I would write something that had a lot of snippets, which are like, little text complete things that you can write, but they can have multiple fields. So like for blocks, you've got like a block name and a block type and whatever, you can write it. So you just have those little tab fields that go through. I would just think of like some things I do all the time, and I would write snippets for them, and I'd package that in an extension and kind of learn what the the frame of an extension looks like, put a little bit of functionality in there, see what that's like, and then maybe look at some of the more detailed JavaScript parts of it. But that way you can do minimal JavaScript, TypeScript up front.
Gotcha.
You do some functionality that you already understand, and then you can build on it from there.
Nice.
That's what I would do.
I will come back to my questions because we have a question in the chat. So Tom would like to know, Tom Tucker, I hope I'm saying that correct, would like to know what's next for the plugin. I remember the original had the functionality to command plus click on a resource and open the docs.
Yes, that is definitely in there in the roadmap. We have a published roadmap. Might be also useful to know, both for the VS Code extension and for the language server itself. So you can kind of have a look on there just to see what is next for us in terms of that. But docs links are definitely actually already in there for some level of things. I think we have like a first pass. So you can click and you click on AWS and it says here is all the AWS documentation, but we're definitely working on getting that in for the more detailed pieces of it as well.
Okay, so what I will do is I just popped in the chat the link to the extension repo, and then I also added in the link to the language server repo. And so those would be if anyone has ideas or feature requests, of course, one or those or both of those would be the best way. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good question too, though, because it gives me another chance to point out that it may sometimes seem like we have a sort of a regression in functionality, right, from what the previous one did. And the reason for that is just that because we had to go through and make something that prioritized Terraform 0.12, there's a lot of functionality that was implemented in a way that we couldn't just carry it forward, right? So especially because a lot of the functionality that we're talking about was originally in the extension rather than in the language server. So we have to make a language server version of it for you to get a similar kind of experience. But all of those things are absolutely on our minds, in the roadmap somewhere, because we really want it to look and feel in a similar but very fluid way to what you might have seen before.
That makes sense. I think I know the answer to this, so I'm trying to see the best way to word it. So you had to pretty much rework it to match the conventions in 0.12. And also
to have the separation of functionality between client and server. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So with increasing versions, so like we're at what, 0.15, what are we, GA? Beta? GA? Like how hard is it to, now that you have the 0.12 base, how hard has it been to adjust or rework or add functionality based on the succeeding versions?
Overall, it's not too bad. A lot of that comes down to what the Terraform project itself is doing, which is kind of smaller and smaller kinds of changes as they approach that 1.0 release. And, I like for 0.15, there was just some really minimal stuff that we looked at to make sure that it all happened. And most of it was on the server side. I think I need to have one more look just to make sure none of the syntax highlighting changed. But yeah, so smaller and smaller things. It's not too bad. And also we have, the great thing about bringing the extension into HashiCorp is that we have the advantage that we know what is going to happen with the next version of Terraform.
That is true. Yeah, you can be more proactive.
We can have like all the project conversations about that, and so really be thinking ahead.
Yeah, that does help. I didn't even think about it that way. Everyone else is usually having to wait until something's released, and then they have to be
yeah, it's the same thing on providers too, right?
Yeah.
Like was HashiCorp maintains these like really big key providers. Well, one of the reasons is that we can make sure that we have that integration. Make sure that we are on top of all those kinds of changes.
All right. Oh, and here's another question. All right. So let's see. Also, how about support for uninitialized modules? Is that something that's going to happen in the future?
Yes, that is like the big thing. It is because, okay, so if you use the extension now and you are using it with these uninitialized modules, you probably know you get a little pop-up message that says, would you like to run init?
Yes.
So the reason for this is that the language server needs to know your schema in order to be able to provide the kinds of functionality that it has. It needs to know what the schema of the thing it's looking at is. And the way that we get schema currently is by the file that's created when you run Terraform init. Right. That's what tells us how this thing is parsed. So without that, we have to do some other things to try to figure out, so what's the most minimal schema that we can just assume, because, we know it's a Terraform config file. We are also looking at getting schema from the registry. So for, for providers that have been downloaded but not initialized, things like that, for modules too, we're looking at getting the schema from the registry. So you don't have to run it in it personally, but we can still see that. Okay. And so, yeah, the direction that we are very decidedly moving in is to make sure that regardless of whether you've initialized it, you're going to see some level of functionality. You're not going to see a lot of errors. It is going to just work to the capability of what we can understand from the amount of schema that we have available.
I think you got a smiley face for that one. All right.
Good. I'm glad. I would, that's the answer I want to hear. So this is something I push on every time we talk about the roadmap, just to make sure that we are making progress toward that. Yeah.
It's like, is there anything else before the end of the meeting? Yes. Module.
It's not like anybody's arguing about this. No, it's just, again, we have two people, right? There are just two people, and there are a whole lot of you, which I love. I love that there are so many people using this, but it just means that there are things that we know are really important that we are still, trying to get through because our bandwidth is relatively small.
Right. Let's see. What other question was I going to ask? If you could work on any one thing right now or add any integration that you wanted to, what would you add? Not necessarily on the roadmap, but just like even just some kind of fantasy integration that you would want to work on and have time to work on. What would that be?
It is on the roadmap. The thing that I'm most excited about integrating right now is Terraform Cloud, and giving people the ability to, work with their runs and their workspaces and things like that from Terraform Cloud in VS Code. So you don't have to open your browser. You don't have to step out of where you're doing your work.
That would be so great.
Yeah. So that's actually the main thing that I'm working on right now, is that. And also what that looks like for new users. There are a lot of people who haven't tried Terraform Cloud before. They might not understand. They might not know that there is a free level and that a lot of you could be using the free level.
That's what I do now. I found that. Look, and funnily enough, people that are viewing this, I did not know that part of it. And it is great. That free level is perfect, especially for backing up things that I tend to delete when I rage quit. So yeah, that free tier is wonderful.
Yeah, so this is what I'm working on though, is figuring out what that user experience is going to look like, figuring out what parts of the API we use for that. Also, yeah, just thinking a lot about that new user experience, right? So not just to like shove something in a sidebar for you, but how do we show you what Terraform Cloud can do, help you understand if you want it, and then help you really enable it in a way that has least friction so you can just do your work.
Terraform
that's my goal. That's my dream.
Terraform login straight from the ID. Yeah, that one is. Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, and I have a demo in. I have a pull request on the VS Code repo. If somebody is really motivated, they can pull it and build it. Just to see, so like, what's the base functionality that we're thinking about right now?
Just so happens I have that repo open. I might add that to my end of day things to play around with. So I will do that.
The thing to know, if you want to take something from a pull request, any pull request, and run it, you're going to need a tool called VSCE. That's the packager that the VS Code extensions use. It's an npm package. You can just install it in the normal ways that you would. But that's the thing that you'll run so that you get the VSIX file, which is the extension, and then you can build any extension you want, take it off of our releases page even, and load that into your VS Code so that you can try things out.
All right, so
no guarantees about functionality if you do that, but from unmerged pull requests, you know.
I'm glad to know that. I think I found it in their API docs. Yep. Okay. So in the chat, I will be posting PCE package that is required if would like to try running some stuff. That is verbatim for people that are watching. All right. So let's see. The other question I have, and it's admittedly off topic. Thank you, Tom. Is there also a dedicated team for the Terraform GitHub action? And I never even considered that would be a thing.
Would you believe that that's also me?
Are you serious?
If you're talking about setup Terraform, yeah, that's also me.
I didn't know that was you.
There's not really a team.
Thank you, Tom.
There is enablement, but yeah, that's also me.
Yeah, so enablement is your answer for that. You know what? I'm mad. I didn't know that. That was a good question. Thank you for asking.
It was one of those funny things where so we use it. This is the thing. It's one of our CI dependencies. And there was this was a few months ago. There was a security warning that I was getting. So I looked at it and found out that there wasn't a current maintainer for it. So I said, well, it kind of fits in what our team's doing. Obviously, we need it. And this is how we get there.
So that's the HashiCorp setup Terraform actions one is the one you're talking about? Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So if you have a GitHub action that needs Terraform in the workflow, then that's the thing you use.
I actually might need this. Did not know this existed. For tomorrow, Rosemary, if you are listening, please remind me to do this tomorrow. I had no idea.
It's helpful.
Thank you, Tom, for asking that. I'm going to, and here's a link to the setup. If you hear the clacking, I apologize. I have blue switches. Here's a link to the setup. GitHub actions. This is awesome. I love my community office hours. I promise you I do. All right, here we go. Oh, you are full of questions. All right, let's see. Any chance support for GitHub token? Will that be added?
I don't know. Is there a issue in the repo for that?
Oh, so they would need to put that in the language server repo?
Sorry, I was muting so I could type. Are we talking about setup Terraform or are we talking about it has its own repo?
Oh, no. Yeah, no. Yeah, there you just answered my question. Yeah, so Tom, I think what someone is nudging you to do is to add an issue for that. I'm going to go search
or +1 it if there's an existing one, and I will. This is where I'm going to mute myself and go open that repo so that after this, I look and see what issues are filed. Make sure that I review them.
If you open it, I don't think that I have the right. I have the archived one, so I was gonna pop that into the. Oh no, I found it. HashiCorp. I found it. Setup Terraform. Is that it? Okay. I'm going to place a link to that in the chat. Also,
it looks like somebody has added an issue for that already.
So. Oh yeah. Apparently it might have been Tom. It says yes. So yes.
Excellent. Excellent. I have it open. I'll have a look. I can't make any promises about when anything on this particular repo gets done, just because it's not. What am I trying to say? There's only one of me. So it helps me when people +1 stuff, do the thumbs up reaction, just so I know what's important to you all.
I'll keep that open also while I rework my week on stuff I need to, because I haven't done any PRs or anything lately, and I probably need to do that.
Well, and Tracy, I would love a co-maintainer.
You did not hear that publicly stated. Anyone that's listening, that was not said, but yeah, no.
It's a small amount of JavaScript.
All right, a little bit. Fine. I need to learn it and get comfortable with that kind of stuff anyway.
I was even thinking I should ask you about this, so this is great timing.
Fine, I'll put it in my list. Man, you owe me another trip for coffee and bread. What else do I have? This is another fun fact. This is my road trip, one of my road trip buddies also. So if you see us laughing and giggling for no reason at all, this is why.
It's because we did Iceland in 24 hours or less. And
yeah, we did the 24-hour or less version of Iceland, and I was full of bread and espresso, and it was great. Tom said, if I can help in any way, let me know. Happy to contribute, although my JS is shocking.
All right. If you want to submit pull requests, when I can also help people through that.
Awesome. Let's see. What else did I have on my list? Oh, feedback. So I know you all don't have a specific discuss forum like a lot of like the providers of the plugin SDK team. So if they want to add questions or issues or anything like that for the community, do they just need to go to the main Terraform, like under the providers repo, I guess, would it be? I mean, the providers forum part of it, or like the Terraform part of it?
I don't want to send people someplace that we're not checking. So I don't have a great answer to that.
Okay.
We're between product managers. And so this is a question I'd be asking my product manager.
So what I will say then is, for right now, because we don't have a specific discuss link for me to give you all like I normally would, if you have a question, is it okay if they add it in the repo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure. Both Radek and I go through the, like issues that are posted either in the language server repo or the VS Code repo. So, if it's a question we answer, we will. If it's a bug to be fixed, we'll triage it, so on and so forth.
All right. Let me see if I have any other questions. Does anyone else have any questions in the chat? This is going to be a short one probably, but it's a good one. I'm enjoying this one. I'm getting answers to things that I did not know. Right,
questions you didn't even know to ask.
I did not know that. I'm still mad about the GitHub Actions question. Like that one was, I never even paid attention to that.
I didn't really know we had it until I saw that security warning and I was like, we should do something about that.
That's awesome. Let's see. I don't have any more questions in the chat. All right, I have viewers and people in chat. If you have any more questions, ask them. I am going to go through make sure I let you know what's coming next list of things. So tomorrow for HashiCorp Live, I forgot I had a HashiCorp Live tomorrow, but apparently I have a HashiCorp Live tomorrow. So Rosemary and I will be carrying on HashiCorp Live tomorrow on a dev.2 provider for Terraform that I need to get done. It's been in my brain. And so that's what we're going to do. And that'll be at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Then on Monday, if I can convince her to do so and maybe send her a plant, for PepCat Mondays, we might debug whatever we broke on the stream for tomorrow. So come join us for that. If that happens, it will be on Twitch like all of our HashiCorp live streams are, and that would be at 9 a.m. Pacific, if I'm not mistaken, and 12 noon Eastern. And then on Wednesday, we'll have what's becoming our normal cadence with Alexandra and Eric with Terraforming with Freeman, where they're learning Terraform from the beginning, and that will be on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern. Then for community office hours, the next community office hours so far will happen on April 15th at 12 noon, and that will be with the Azure and Active Directory providers for Terraform. You can keep up with all things office hours and or community at the link that I just placed in the chat. Yeah, that's what we have coming up next. Can you think of anything else that I missed? Got nothing.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm having fun. I mean, this is good. I always like hearing like what kind of stuff people are running into, and just things that we, I use the extension, but I don't use it like people with whole big, Terraform configs use it. So there's just going to be stuff that maybe I don't think of first, I really like getting that kind of feedback.
Okay, well, you heard it from here. If you have any questions or issues, test away, pop it into the repo.
Tell us your use cases. Yeah. If you hit a use case and it's super awkward, that's something we really want to know.
Awesome. Thank you for coming to join me for community office hour. That was fun. All right, everyone. I will see you all. Come join me on HashiCorp Live tomorrow as hopefully Patty will be in the chat heckling me and Rosemary. So this should be fun tomorrow. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much for joining.